A beautiful afternoon to you, and you're welcome to News Central. Now, let's look at the top stories at this hour. Nigeria's former President Goodluck Jonathan intervenes in Wike Fubara feud. Niger-US agree to complete withdrawal of troops by September 15. African Union condemns DR Congo coup bid. We have details of those headlines and other stories ahead on the news shortly. Welcome. Let's begin by telling you that Nigeria's former president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, has called for a truce in the River State political crisis while urging the state governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and former governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, to work together. Goodluck Jonathan said this today, Monday, during the unveiling of the Trans-Calabari Road in the state. Wike and Fubara have long been at loggerheads since October 2023. Some lawmakers in the state began impeachment proceedings against the incumbent governor. Now, despite President Bola Tinubu's intervention, the governor has been at a war with the 27 lawmakers in the state who are loyal to Nyesom Wike and later defected to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. In a relative vein, 5 commissioners loyal to FCT Minister Nyesom Wike had also resigned from the State Executive Council. Now, joining us live from the River State capital, Port Harcourt, to discuss this is Chairman Finance Committee of the Rivers Elders and Leaders Forum.
Well, in a state like this and in a fight like this, or in a disagreement like this, there are always difficulties. And as long as these difficulties and disagreements continue, there's a tendency for there to be one kind of friction or the other. You see, when there are disagreements, some people want to benefit from them and others want to be just spoilers. Really, the governor has, I think, at this time, realized that at the end of the day, the buck stops on his table. His performance or non-performance will be credited against him. So I think he has decided that in spite of the issues around him, he has to continue with the governance of the state and continue with the things he was voted to do. A lot of the other people do not necessarily have any real score to be scored. Nobody will ask them how the state was governed. Nobody will ask them whether they succeeded or not. So if anything goes wrong at the end of the day, Fubara will take the bullet. So knowing that, I believe that being a man who has been, a lot of people say he's not a politician, maybe yes, he's not, but he has been an administrator for a long time to become the accountant general of a state. I know accountants are always accounting. They take scores of whatever they do, and they try as much as possible to ensure that they give back results, or they take audits and give out results of what they have done. So in his realization that he has a mandate from the people to ensure that they are well governed, they will ask him about the monies he's spending and all those things. He has to go on implementing projects and commissioning them.
Dr. Renabere, what has the role been of the Elders Forum? Now, you've been a champion for South-South issues right from the days of the South-South People's Assembly. And now we have the Rivers Elders Forum because this is a River State issue. What has the role of you, the elders, been in resolving this lasting issue between both parties? And would you say it's yielding results? Because last time I checked, you the elders had gone to court, in support of one side.
I think I would like to beg your pardon on that issue. The elders who went to court just want to know how the Constitution has stated things and whether people are following them. You see, Nigeria is a country of laws, without which we'll be in serious chaos. And you see, when people start things, they should look at the end game from the beginning. You cannot run a country without rules, and the Constitution is the grand norm of all the laws. So when things go wrong, the first thing as a proper elder to do is to find out whether these things are according to our laws. And it's after you find out that you try to intervene and make reasonable adjudications. In fact, traditionally, even before the era of courts, elders settle cases. Now, we as elders from the beginning have not been too happy that the former governor has been a lot on the present governor to go according to his ways. Even from the beginning, most of the commissioners were appointed by him. The former governor hardly said anything. Even the present governor hardly said anything. Even during the campaign era, people hardly heard the voice of Governor Fubara. And even from then, we saw ominous signs. In fact, people went on to say that former Governor Wike was trying to do a third term through his protege, Governor Fubara now. And we saw those signs. We were weary about it. If you take a proper census of those who voted for Fubara, you'll see that the votes were not all for Fubara. The votes were scattered. A lot of well-thinking people were a bit worried about voting for Fubara because they felt that voting for Fubara was voting for Wike. In that vein, a lot of people who might have voted for him on his own merit did not vote for him. And of course, when he appeared, when he eventually became governor, we all supported him because there can be only one governor. Whether you voted for Kolo, you voted for Itubo from Labour Party, whoever you voted for, when the governor emerges, you expect to rally around him, and that was what we tried to do. So it's not a question of siding one person, because I'm sure a lot of people in the Elders Forum, even now, if they were to pick
Doc,
a governor,
just before we go,
might not have picked,
just before we go, Doc, the former president, Dr. Jonathan, has given his own take on this, calling for a truce, in the River State political crisis, and asking both men, Nyesom, Wike and Fubara governor, to work together. What do you think the former president means, and what will you say is a lasting solution to this political friction?
Well, working together generally is the right thing to do. In fact, I was head of a committee. Even during the last dispensation, we had a powerful Minister of Transportation in Amechi and a powerful governor in Wike, and they didn't work together, and River State lost a lot. So if today we have a powerful Minister of Federal Capital Territory and we have a strong governor, if they work together, the synergy will play well. rather than synergizing, what we are seeing right now is trying to pull him down. And that's why we are very unhappy, because those of us who went to court, our main reason is to salvage the River State, salvage the soul of the River State.
Okay.
And in so doing, we are not after, in fact, if you looked at that case, we are not after Sim, we are not after Wike, we are after the right thing to be done. If today the Constitution was made clear from the day those assemblymen walked out and crossed carpet and they were put in their proper place, by-elections should have long been held, and we'll have a full House of Assembly who will do the right thing. If at the end of the day...
Okay. Dr. Iranabere, we have to leave with that. Dr. Kalada Dick Iranabere, he's a medical practitioner and, of course, chairman of the Finance Committee of the Rivers Elders and Leaders Forum, of course, throughout this week. And following from last week, News Central, we have a team on ground as we cover a special coverage of the political crisis in Rivers State. In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission, Nigeria's electoral umpire, has been accused by the new Nigeria People's Party of what it calls excessive meddling and taking of sides in the party's internal leadership dispute. The party further recommended that INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakub, investigate the staff members' purported presence at its breakaway group convention, even though they were served with a court order contesting it. Now, in a statement signed by NNPP's factional national secretary, Ogini Olaposi, the party is insisting that INEC chairman must fish out the colluding staff and ensure punishment is served. Now, shortly after the general election in 2023, the party experienced a crisis when Rabiu Kwankwaso, the former governor of Kano State and the presidential candidate of the party in that election, was expelled by the Board of Trustees under the leadership of Boniface Aniebodam, who is a founder of the party, for allegedly engaging in what was called or termed anti-party actions. To discuss this, I'm joined by the National Publicity Secretary of the New Nigeria People's Party. I don't know if we can call him factional. Ladipo Johnson, good afternoon to you. Thank you so very kindly for your time.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
Okay. What do you make of the statement by the factional, if you would, National Secretary of the NNPP, Ogini Olaposi, who is accusing INEC of taking sides and fueling the crisis in the party?
For the upteenth time, we don't have a faction. Olaposi was chairman of Ogun State. He was expelled, as with Adebunam and many others. Now they have issued notices, and we keep telling the press that there are court decisions that have told them to stop parading themselves, that have told them that they are not the working committee, they are not the Board of Trustees. Yet the press keeps going on, listening to what they're saying and just taking it hook, line, and sinker. If the press were to do some form of due diligence, just go to INEC and say on your books, who is the national chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party? They will see it there in black and white. Ajuji Ahmed. He is the national chairman. Olaposi is not a secretary.
Yeah,
sorry, sir.
So they say they have the imposition of a court order which restrained the party from holding that convention, thereby voiding the convention that produced your faction of the party.
The court order. Have you seen the court order? There was no court order. They went to court before Justice Egwatu of the Federal High Court, Abuja. They brought a motion for injunction. We postponed convention went to court, and the court ruled on the arguments from all sides, including INEC. And the court told them point blank, you are not members of the party. You cannot restrain what the party is doing. Furthermore, in suit FHC ABJ CS 1352 2023, before Honorable Justice Wike of the Federal High Court, Abuja, recently, the judge told them, you have no legs to stand on. You are out. Now they have a right of appeal, but it would help, of course they wouldn't do it, that when they're making all these spurious allegations and statements, that the press would say, have you appealed this? Why don't you wait till you appeal, or when they appeal, the judgment of the Court of Appeal comes down before you start claiming that you're national secretary or you're chairman of the board, etc., etc. This will not happen in any same jurisdiction.
All right, Honorable Joshua, what measures can be implemented to increase?
Anyone can stand up. Kofi,
yes.
Ladipo Johnson cannot get three people together and then say, I am News Central. You sue me to court. Your management will sue me to court.
Ladipo Johnson, moving forward, what measures can be implemented, to increase transparency and accountability within the NNPP in order to prevent external political bodies from influencing its internal operations?
Look, measures, the party is running smoothly. Those who wanted to cause problems, who decided to sell their votes, etc., whatever the reasons were, before falsely claiming that Kwankwaso was involved in anti-party activities. I take it myself, I was even suspended and expelled by them. They're not the party. The party is running smoothly. We are trying to rebrand. We're moving ahead. You recall that they even referred to the convention of the 6th of April, stating that it is an illegal convention. It wasn't. We waited. They went to court. We waited, and the court threw their motion out. And INEC covered the convention. So INEC is not biased. INEC is not doing anything wrong. They are not supporting Kwankwaso. They are just playing to the gallery.
All right. Ladipo Johnson, we will look for a forum to have you and a representative of the other side on the news in not too distant future. But we have to leave it at that, sir. We appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Ladipo Johnson, Publicity Secretary of the New Nigeria People's Party. We'll return with more stories after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News Central now on News Central Television. Now to more stories. The United Kingdom Civil Aviation Authority has raised concerns over Air Peace's compliance with aviation safety regulations. In a letter sent to Nigeria's Civil Aviation Authority titled United Kingdom SAFA Ramp Inspection Report, the UK regulator highlighted several safety issues. The report pointed out that the absence of operational approval for electronic flight path EFB functions, which are crucial for the safe operation of the aircraft. Additionally, it noted the lack of a mounting device for the EFB, no charging points, and no backup batteries for the aircraft. Now, this development comes just 3 months after Air Peace launched its Lagos-London route. The Nigerian airline recently began flights to London Gatwick from the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos under the bilateral air services agreement between Nigeria and the UK. Now, let's also tell you that the Nigerian federal government may soon reduce its annual fuel import bill of approximately 6.2 trillion naira. Now, this potential saving hinges on the anticipated commencement of premium motor spirit sales by the Dangote Petroleum Refinery, as announced by Chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote. Speaking of the Africa CEO Forum Annual Summit in Kigali, Rwanda, Dangote assured Nigerians that starting next month, the country will no longer need to import petrol. This move follows the removal of the subsidy on petrol by President Bola Tinubu on May 29 last year, which had already cut Nigeria's petrol imports to an average of 1 billion litres monthly, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The $20 billion Dangote refinery is set to meet the petrol and diesel needs of West Africa, aviation fuel demands of the entire continent. If Dangote's assurances come to fruition, Nigeria could see a substantial reduction in its yearly expenditure on the importation of petrol. The importance of a dependable and competitively priced power supply for economic growth cannot be overemphasized, as stakeholders in Nigeria have consistently underpinned the significance of this if Nigeria is to fully unleash its business potentials. Now, despite this, the current conditions have left many entrepreneurs still struggling with the limitations of insufficient and costly electricity. In this report, News Central's Nyesom examines the issue.
The recent announcement of new electricity tariff drew mixed reactions from Nigerians. While some business owners acknowledged that power supply marginally improved, others complained that the increase is unjustifiable given the general poor state of electricity infrastructure and the country's harsh economic realities.
There's lights, yeah, but the tariff is not helping the business. It's really not helping the business.
There's too many load to carry at this one time, So I think the government should take it a bit easy. The end users will suffer for it. And if they're not careful, a lot of us will go out of business.
If they say 15%, let them pay as much as possible, as close to the cost of production and this transmission and distribution of the energy that they are consuming. I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
With businesses continually grappling with high production costs due to the frequent power outages and fluctuations, alternative power sources like fuel and diesel power generators have practically become mainstay for many companies to run their operations. However, the rising cost of fuel has made this option more expensive, especially for local manufacturers.
The light issue is not really good at all. It's something that you have to support it with the diesel. We run gen almost like 5 hours, 6 hours.
And the cost structure of power in an average manufacturing company is between 30% to 40%. So when that percentage of your cost escalates by about 200, 300, 400%, you have a major problem in your hands.
Government is taking steps to address the power crisis, including investing in infrastructure upgrades and cutting electricity exports to focus on meeting domestic demand.
There was a new approval for a 93-kilometer transmission line in the southeast. There is also an approval for 15 numbers of acting transformers and acting reactors to strengthen the grid. You understand? And we also got approval for emergency restoration systems.
We will need to increase the infrastructure now and again, increase the asset base now and again. But that is predicated on the availability of liquidity.
The inadequate power supply remains a major impediment to the growth of businesses in the country, as the unstable power supply also leads to disrupted operations and losses of perishable goods and raw materials. Stakeholders call for increased private sector participation, improved regulatory oversight, and further investment in renewable energy to achieve stable and affordable electricity for businesses. In Lagos for News Central, Nyesom.
Government has taken a unique approach to curbing the increasing incidents of electricity tower vandalization in Nigeria's Yobe state. Concerned by the impact of these criminal activities on the power supply, the state government has engaged Islamic clerics to seek divine intervention. With more, here's News Central's Umar Kirawa.
Electricity towers, which are important components of the state's power infrastructure, have been the target of unknown miscreants, leading to frequent power outages and significant economic consequences for the people of Yobe.
You can see household spendings, what they're supposed to use for food stuff, to buy gas or fuel, just to charge their phones and use it for their daily activities. So I think the effect of this vandalization is numerous.
We are praying and hoping that the restoration should take place in time so that people will just have access to potable water.
People now queue up to access water in some selected points, as small and medium-scale businesses in communities also suffer retrogressive consequences of the electricity tower vandals. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the state government, under the leadership of Governor Mai Mala Buni, has decided to enlist the help of religious leaders to seek divine intervention and punishment for the perpetrators of these vandalism incidents.
We are here this morning as part of a spiritual exercise to counter the people that are vandalizing the 330 kV line that supplies electricity to Damaturu, Yobe State Capital, and also Borno State.
The clerics have been tasked with reciting verses from the Holy Quran, invoking God's wrath and punishment on the perpetrators of these acts.
We are going to improve our social cohesion. What I mean by social cohesion, the host community, where these towers has passed through. We are going to engage them to show them the importance of these towers.
The state government believes that involving religious leaders will help deter potential vandals and send a strong message that their actions will not be tolerated.
We have appealed to the communities around to take ownership of all this infrastructure because they have also suffered and they are still suffering because they are suffering water shortage, they are suffering heat, they are suffering lack of even cold drinking water is not available in the state now.
Residents are now hopeful that the spiritual approach will complement the ongoing law enforcement efforts and bring an end to the scourge of electricity tower vandalism in the state. In Damaturu for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Yes, so watching News Central now. Coming up, Niger, United States agree to complete withdrawal of troops by September 15. We'll bring you details. There's more after the break. Welcome back. The news continues in West Africa, where Niger and the United States of America have announced that they have reached an agreement to disengage with the reading of the joint statement aired on Niger's public television, Tele Sahel, which also showed members of the U.S. and Niger military having a meeting. Now, the Director of External Relations and Military Cooperation for Niger said it is therefore agreed that this withdrawal of U.S. troops from Niger will end on September 15, 2024 at the latest. However, both sides added that a withdrawal will not affect ties relating to development in Niger. The country has been a key partner for the United States in combating insurgency in the Sahel region, who have been causing significant loss of life and displacement.
Le ministère de la Défense nationale du Niger et le département de la Défense des États-Unis ont trouvé un accord de désengagement pour effectuer le retrait des forces américaines. Il est ainsi convenu que ce désengagement se terminera au plus tard le 15 septembre 2024. Les délégations ont également établi des procédures pour faciliter l'entrée et sortie du personnel américain, y compris les autorisations de survol et atterrissage pour les vols militaires. Le Niger et les États-Unis s'engagent à un dialogue diplomatique continu pour définir l'avenir de leurs relations bilatérales.
In the central of the continent, the head of the African Union mission, Musa Faki Mahamat, has expressed great concern following an attempted coup in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Sunday. In a statement, the AU Commission chair strongly condemned the attempted coup d'etat and welcomed the control of the situation announced by the country's defense and security forces. He expressed his delight that all leaders of Republican institutions are safe and sound, as he condemned any use of force to change the constitutional order in any African state. The DR Congo military said on Sunday it had foiled a coup bid near the offices of the President Felix Tshisekedi in the capital Kinshasa, involving foreigners and Congolese nationals. Shots were fired ahead near the Palais des Nations, or the Nation's Palace, that houses the president's offices, at the time of the coup attempt in the early hours of Sunday, according to a number of sources. South Africa's highest court has barred former President Jacob Zuma from running for parliament in next week's general election. The Constitutional Court ruled that his 15-month prison sentence for contempt of court disqualified him. Zuma was convicted in 2021 for refusing to testify at an inquiry investigating corruption during his time as president, which ended in 2018. Now, he has been campaigning under the banner of the newly formed Umkhonto Wesizwe, or the MK party, after falling out with the governing African National Congress, the ANC. The MK Secretary General, Sile Ngubane, says the party was disappointed with the ruling, but it will not affect its campaign. Let's stay in the southern part of the continent. South Africa is all set to host a premier global aerospace and defense trade exhibition, the 12th Biennial Africa Aerospace and Defense Trade Exhibition and Air Show, under the theme Exploring New Paths, Sharing Solutions, showcasing innovation and capability, will take place at the Air Force Base at Waterkloof, on the outskirts of Pretoria in South Africa. The event is considered to be one of the top 6 events of its kind in the world, as the only aerospace and defense exhibition and air show on the African continent. It will see exhibitors coming from different countries, including the United States of America, Belgium, and China, among others. Still ahead, world leaders mourn Iran president. We'll bring you details of this story and others after the break. Welcome back, and now to more stories. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has joined other world leaders to pay tribute following the fatal helicopter crash that killed Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi. The country's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, in a statement on Monday, President Tinubu expressed his grief over this tragedy and described President Raisi as a leader who was passionately committed to the development of Iran. In the same vein, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was also deeply saddened and shocked by the tragic demise of President Raisi in the crash. For China's President Xi Jinping, Raisi's tragic death was a great loss to the Iranian people. On the same vein, Iran's Gulf neighbors, United Arab Emirates and Qatar, said that they stand in solidarity with Iran at this difficult time. For more on this, I'm joined by News Central's international correspondent, Ifwa Hagen. Ifwa, it's good to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, this is a really sad situation for the Iranians. How has the West responded to this incident?
You're absolutely right. A very sad situation for the Iranians. You had the response there of China. We've had the response from Hamas and Hezbollah, who have said that they are equally mourning the death of the Iranian president. But the response from the West has certainly been more muted. Now, President Biden has been traveling the past couple of days, and people around him are saying that he is trying to assess the response from Iran themselves, if there's any whispers that there could be US involvement. Of course, there haven't been those whispers yet. And so I think he is waiting until that reaction comes or doesn't come before he can give his response. Of course, there's no indication of any Israeli involvement yet either. But I think he's waiting to see what happens in terms of that so he can decide on the response to this tragic accident. Now, Charles Michel, the president of the European Council, says the EU expresses sincere condolences for their deaths. But otherwise, across the Western world, a very muted response so far to President Raisi's death.
It's quite a very tense one, especially remembering the missiles that were sent the way of Israel for the first time in history from Iran. The world went through that unscathed, as it were. How impactful would this current incident be on the stability of the Middle East, which is already going through a difficult time?
The Middle East certainly going through a difficult time. You talked about the shadow war, which has kind of been reignited over the past month, where you had that tit for tat firing back and forth between Iran and Israel, which we had not seen for many, many years. Completely unprecedented that the shadow war would come back, but there is increased instability in that region, of course, because of the Israel-Gaza conflict. Look, President Raisi was kind of a figure. Of course, you have the supreme leader in charge of him, who is the one that really sets the tone and makes the decisions. President Raisi was a conservative, very much fell into line. So in this particular point where we're at, where we have this instability in the region, although you will have days of mourning for President Raisi, you've got 5 days of mourning declared across Lebanon. We can expect a similar number across Iran as well, where you do have the days of mourning across the Middle East region. This won't cause too much upset. What it will do perhaps is push back the time when we were supposed to choose, or the Iranians were supposed to choose, a new supreme leader. It may push back that. But across the Middle Eastern world, it won't have too much impact so far.
Quite interesting that you talked about that. Raisi expected to be the next Ayatollah. And of course, this obviously is a blow to the leadership. But what happens now in Iran in regards to the leadership at executive level, where Raisi was leading the country, and then for the Ayatollahship, as it were, where he was expected to be the next Ayatollah?
Absolutely. It's now a task to find a new candidate to be the new Ayatollah. You're right in saying that he was definitely in line. I remember the foreign minister was killed also in that attack. So you have these two key positions that need to be filled. And trust me, they will be filled as people who are conservatives, who fall into the line of the Iranian leadership. So that's what's going to happen in the immediacy. You know, he was a middle-ranking person. He wasn't the overall, as it were. And so him not being in the government anymore, a tragedy for his friends and family, obviously, but isn't going to hugely shake Iran and Iran's vision and direction at the moment. It will push back looking for a new Ayatollah. That is going to take some more time. So those are the things we will be looking at. Like I said, days of mourning that will be coming, the state funeral that will be organized as well. Those will be a huge deal. And of course, the world will be watching not only what happens during this time of the funeral, the state funeral, but also what happens next.
I just have a last question off the script for you. How will Iran react? Yesterday, Mossad was training on X, and some people, not experts like yourself, have been talking about the Third World War. Are we closer to that now?
I don't think we're any closer to that now, today, than we were possibly on Saturday. But you are right in saying that this could potentially tip the balance. You know, we did have young people uprising in 2022 when we had protests across the country. And, you know, dissent will be come down upon very, very hard in Iran. But because this particular president wasn't necessarily someone who really took the country in one direction or another, like I said, he fell into line. He was very much a conservative. I don't think we will necessarily have those problems. I don't think we will necessarily have dissent. But in any country, if you have a vacuum of power, which is what we have now, that can be filled. It can go one way or the other. I think I'm right in saying that it probably won't go down the road of dissent and protest, but anything can happen. If Iran is smart, they will fill the two vacuums of power, not just the president, the foreign minister as well, it was his job to go around the world and promote the business of Iran. They will fill those two positions as quickly as possible because we don't want a vacuum of power, especially in the region at the moment.
Ifwa, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
We'll take more stories now. The Nigerian government's recent plan to tap into the pension fund has sparked a wave of concern among citizens. Now, many are questioning the rationale behind this move and its potential consequences for their retirement security. On Business Edge today, Tunji Andrew, the Chief Executive Officer of Awaba, explained the investment options and how Nigeria's government intends to be part of it.
Has created multiple opportunities for Nigerians to be able to direct how their pension funds are invested. As of today, I think we have 6 different funds in the pension system, from Fund 1 to Fund 6, which have different horizons, different perspectives about how the money is invested. One of them is actually an ethical fund for people who their religious beliefs or their ethical beliefs do not believe in profit, but they would like in terms of, do not believe in interest, but believe in profit sharing. So there are different kinds of pools within the pension system. And if you speak to your pension fund administrator, they will be able to give you a definite clarity on which one is available to you and which one you can invest in. So the choice is already there.
Thank you, Tunji. And that's all at this hour right here on News Central Television. Before we go, let's take another look at the major stories. Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Jonathan, has intervened in the Wike Fubara feud. The Republic of Niger and the United States of America have agreed to complete the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Niger by September 15. We also told you that the African Union has condemned the DR Congo's coup bid. We'd like to hear from you. Send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number or email address showing on your screen. You can also follow us on social media where we are at News Central TV. And watch us live on any of these channels or platforms. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kofi Bartels. Good day.